They say most stories like this start with a gut feeling. But for me, it started with a busted charger and a drawer full of forgotten tech. That Saturday, I wasn't looking for anything except the one cable that could still bring my phone back to life. I'd already been through 2 drawers and a junk basket in the garage before I remembered the tablet. Megan's old one, banged up at the edges, screen cracked like a spiderweb in one corner. It had been sitting in the hallway drawer since the pandemic, untouched. She'd upgraded a couple years back, left the old one behind like it was nothing. But I figured maybe, just maybe, the charger I needed was still in the case. No charger. Just dust and a sticky note with a recipe for lemon bars. Out of pure boredom, I plugged it into the wall anyway, just to see if it still worked. It took a while to power up. While it was charging, I went about my usual Saturday routine, puttering around the house, cleaning out the fridge, folding a mountain of laundry I'd ignored all week. By the time I walked past the tablet again, the screen was glowing faintly. It startled me a little, like it had come back to life on its own. Swipe. No password. Typical Megan, she always thought passwords were more of a nuisance than a safety measure. I wasn't snooping, not really. At least, that's what I told myself. I was just checking out what was still on it, curiosity, plain and simple. Maybe some old vacation pictures, something nostalgic. We used to take a lot of pictures, especially early on. Trips to the coast, those random weekend getaways where we'd pick a town at random and pretend we were travel bloggers. I miss those days more than I like to admit. I opened the photo gallery. A lot of it was what I expected: selfies of the 2 of us, pictures of our dog when he was still a puppy, some recipe screensh *TS, a few funny memes she must have saved back when she was on Pinterest 20 times a day. Then I saw it. I don't know why I clicked on that photo in particular. It wasn't even at the top of the album, it was older, buried a little. But something about the thumbnail caught my eye. The lighting was moody, warm. It didn't look like a typical snapsh *T. It looked in *mate. I tapped it open. It was Megan sitting at a small round table in a dimly lit cafe. One of those trendy places with Edison bulbs and mismatched mugs, the kind we used to love before she got too busy for coffee dates. She was leaning slightly forward, her hair swept behind one ear, lips parted in what looked like mid-laugh or maybe mid-confession. Across from her sat a man, just barely in the frame, his hand palm up on the table between them. Her hand hovered inches above his, not touching, but close. Too close. There was no timestamp, no geotag, no context. Just that one photo. My first thought was, maybe it's nothing. Maybe someone took it during a group outing and cropped everyone else out. Maybe the angle just makes it look more in *mate than it really was. But the more I stared at it, the more my stomach tightened. The lighting was low, romantic. Candles flickered between them. The guy was smiling, not a casual, work-friendly kind of smile, more like the kind someone gives when they're trying to charm their way into something. Or someone. And then there was Megan. The expression on her face, soft, engaged, flattered. I knew that look. I'd seen it 1,000 times, but it hadn't been aimed at me in a long while. I sat there holding that tablet like it was made of glass, suddenly hyper-aware of how still the house was around me. Our dog snoozed on the couch. The laundry hummed in the background. And I was frozen in place, trying to make sense of what I was seeing. It could have been innocent. It could have been nothing. That's what I told myself over and over. But something deep in my chest had already started to unravel. That night, I brought it up. Carefully. Casually. Like it was just some random memory I'd stumbled across. Hey, I said while we were brushing our teeth. I found your old tablet earlier. Still works. Kind of funny what pops up on those things. There was a picture, looked like you and someone at a coffee shop. She paused mid-motion, toothbrush hanging from her mouth. For a split second, less than a second, really, her eyes flicked away from mine. Then she smiled, a little too wide. Oh? Must have been ages ago. Probably work stuff. Yeah? I said, trying to sound relaxed. Who was it? She spit into the sink, rinsed, then shrugged like it wasn't even worth remembering. David. He's on the product team. We had to prep for a client meeting. We went over notes at a cafe near the office. Nothing dramatic. David. I'd heard the name before. He'd come up in passing. David thinks we should pivot on this. David asked if we could combine decks. I didn't know him, had never met him. He was just a name in a sea of work names. But suddenly he had a face. A place. A flicker of context that didn't feel like enough. Funny, I said, you never mentioned grabbing coffee with him. Megan let out a small laugh, like I was being ridiculous. It wasn't a thing, Ty. It was just a meeting. Honestly, I don't even remember who took that photo. She brushed past me after that, towel in her hand, muttering something about how the guest bathroom needed a new faucet. I didn't press her. Not then. but her voice was too light. Her body language too breezy. The way she skipped ahead to a new topic that wasn't nothing. Later that night, she rolled over in bed and gave me a kiss on the shoulder before falling asleep. A small, routine gesture. But it felt out of place, like it had been added on purpose, like a patch on a sinking ship. I stared at the ceiling long after she started snoring. That image, her, candlelight, leaning forward toward that guy, burned itself into my mind like a watermark I couldn't scrub out. Maybe it was just coffee. Maybe it was a coincidence. Maybe it was nothing. But that was the night something shifted. I didn't have proof. I didn't have answers. All I had was a photo, a deflection, and a gut feeling I couldn't shake. And maybe that's all it takes to start breaking something apart. They say when you notice one crack, you start seeing all the others. After I found that photo, something inside me changed quietly at first. I didn't say anything more to Megan about it, didn't start a fight or turn into some kind of paranoid wreck. Outwardly, everything looked the same. But mentally? I started taking notes. That night in bed, I watched her sleep beside me, the soft rise and fall of her back facing me. I stared at the ceiling, wide awake, going over the details of our life, conversations, routines, little habits I'd never paid much attention to. It was like replaying a movie and realizing all the foreshadowing you missed the first time. The first thing that hit me was the phone. A few months back, she started turning it off at night. Said she didn't want notifications buzzing while we were sleeping, that she was trying to unplug more. At the time, I admired it. Thought it was mature, even healthy. But after that photo? That harmless coffee date with David? I started wondering, unplugging from who, exactly? Then there were the work trips. Megan never used to travel for work, not really. But sometime last year, her job apparently exploded with out-of-town meetings, retreats, conferences. Most were just a couple days, but always to places I couldn't verify. Chicago. Austin. Once some random mountain town for a team-building week. I'd always just nodded along, told her to be safe, to text when she landed. But now that I thought about it, I couldn't recall her ever actually texting me from the airport. Or the hotel. Or anywhere, really. She'd send the occasional, super busy, I'll call you tomorrow, text, or a vague photo of her lunch or her hotel lobby. But it never felt personal. It felt curated. I started remembering other things. The lingerie. Megan bought new lingerie 6 months ago. I remember because the tags showed up in the trash before I ever saw the actual pieces. I thought maybe she was planning a surprise. Maybe a Valentine's Day thing, even though we'd barely acknowledged it this year. But nothing ever came of it. I asked about it once, jokingly, not seriously, and she said something like, it didn't fit right, and that was that. The thing is, Megan never bought lingerie for herself. She only bought it for us. And then there was FaceTime. Or, more accurately, the sudden absence of it. She used to video call me every time she traveled, even if it was just to say goodnight. I remember when she was in Seattle once and we spent an hour on FaceTime while she walked me through her hotel room like she was giving me a virtual tour. But over the last few trips, the video calls just stopped. Whenever I asked, she'd say the Wi-Fi was spotty or that she was too tired or that the lighting was bad. Small excuses easy to swallow. Until you line them up. Then they start to taste like poison. The day after I found the photo, I started checking her Instagram. Megan wasn't big on posting, but every now and then she'd drop a story, usually something mundane. A quote, her lunch, her coffee, her sneakers on a hotel room floor. I scrolled through them, backwards and slow. That's when I noticed something subtle. Her hotel rooms always looked suspiciously similar. Same neutral color palette. Same dark wood furniture. Same curtains. Different cities, same backdrop. Either every Marriott in the country used the same decorator or maybe she wasn't changing cities at all. It's hard to describe what it feels like to doubt someone you've trusted for years. Someone whose face you know better than your own. Every smile starts to look forced. Every laugh sounds rehearsed. You start to question the timing of things. That dinner she canceled last minute, was it really a migraine? That business call she took in the garage, was it really her boss? The most dangerous part of suspicion is how easily it turns you into someone else. Someone you swore you'd never be. I started listening more closely when she talked. Not in the loving, partner-type way. In the calculating way. Her stories didn't always add up. Sometimes she said she stayed at a Hilton, other times she mentioned the Marriott by the airport. I didn't correct her. I just filed it away. I began checking our shared calendar, the one she used religiously to color-code her appointments. I noticed that some of her trips weren't on it. Ones I remembered because she'd mentioned them in passing. I'd say something like, you still going to Denver next week? And she'd blink like I'd caught her off guard before nodding. Oh, yeah. Totally. Totally. I didn't confront her. Not yet. But I did something I never thought I'd do. I went through her purse. She was in the shower. I acted like I was just looking for the TV remote that always got lost in the couch, but my eyes kept flicking to her bag. It sat near the fireplace, open as usual. Megan was messy like that. Her wallet was on top, her keys, a couple loose receipts. One was from a restaurant across town. A place we never go. A place I didn't even know she liked. Dated last Thursday, she told me she had dinner at her boss's place that night. I kept the receipt, folded it carefully and tucked it into my jeans pocket. I didn't know what I was collecting exactly, evidence? Clarity? Closure? But I couldn't stop. I became a quiet detective in my own home. I didn't share any of this with friends. I couldn't. It felt too raw, too uncertain. What if I was wrong? What if this was all just in my head, some elaborate insecurity I'd spun into a conspiracy? But then again, what if it wasn't? The turning point came one night around 11:30. Megan was already asleep, breathing steadily beside me. I was scrolling through her Facebook photos, most of them years old, when I saw a familiar face. David. Not just David. That David. The one from the photo. His profile was locked down tight, but the little I could see made my stomach twist. A picture from a conference 3 months ago, location tagged San Diego. Megan had gone on a team offsite that week. Said it was in Tahoe. Another photo from 6 weeks back. A blurry *T of the back of a woman's head, laughing in a bar. You couldn't see her face. But the hair? The earrings? The way she sat, slightly to the left, head tilted like she was telling a secret? It was Megan. I stared at the screen until my eyes blurred. I wanted to scream, to wake her up, to demand answers. But I didn't. I just locked my phone, rolled onto my side, and stared into the darkness. Everything I'd dismissed, every brush off, every excuse, every "you're overthinking it" suddenly lined up like puzzle pieces snapping into place. And the picture they made? It looked a lot like betrayal. They say trust is hard to earn and easy to lose. What they don't tell you is how brutal it is to watch it die in real time, slowly at first, then all at once. By the time I got to this point, suspicion wasn't eating at me anymore. It had already eaten its fill. Now I wanted certainty. Not guesses, not gut feelings. I needed to know the truth, not just so I could confront Megan, but so I could stop second-guessing my own reality. And it turns out truth has a paper trail. One afternoon while Megan was at work, I sat down with a laptop, a cold cup of coffee, and a new level of quiet resolve. I logged into our joint bank account, something we both had access to but rarely checked unless a bill needed paying. She'd always handled most of the money stuff, auto payments, subscriptions, credit cards. But this time I wasn't checking for balance updates. I was searching for proof. I downloaded 3 months of detailed transactions. Restaurants, gas, online orders, most of it looked like routine life stuff. Groceries, utilities, Amazon splurges. But there, tucked among the basics, was a charge that made my blood run cold. A single-night hotel charge. Midweek. Not a weekend getaway, not a travel reimbursement. A boutique hotel downtown, just fancy enough to matter, just anonymous enough to avoid suspicion. It was dated the same night Megan told me she was crashing at her friend Hannah's after a late girls' wine night. I stared at that transaction like it would rewrite itself if I blinked hard enough. $268.94. I remember the night clearly. I texted her around 10:30 to say goodnight. She replied a few minutes later with a heart emoji and a "talk tomorrow, love." I remember thinking how sweet that was. Now I just felt sick. I wasn't about to ask her directly. I knew how that would go. She'd deflect. Deny. Gaslight if necessary. That's not what you think, or I booked it for a friend, or it was just a work thing. So instead, I took a page out of her playbook. I got quiet, and I got methodical. The next day, I took a personal day from work and drove to the hotel. I didn't walk in right away. I sat in my car across the street, rehearsing what I'd say. I wasn't even sure they'd give me anything, privacy laws, all that. But I was calm, polite, patient. I'd learned by now that if you approach someone the right way, you can get just about anything. I walked into the lobby around 11 a.m. It was sleek, modern, expensive. A row of smiling receptionists stood behind the check-in desk, their voices soft and welcoming like they'd been trained to say everything with a smile. "Hi there," I said, smiling right back. "I think my wife stayed here last Wednesday night." I wanted to surprise her with a framed copy of the receipt. We're putting together a little memory scrapbook. I chuckled lightly. "Her name's Megan Lowe." The woman behind the counter gave me a professional smile. "I'm afraid we can't share reservation details with anyone who isn't on the booking." Totally understand, I said, nodding. That's fair. But I paid for the room. Shared account. I just want to make sure it posted correctly. You can verify that she stayed, right? She hesitated. I leaned in just enough to lower my voice. I know you can't print anything. I don't need you to. I just need to know she was here. A long pause. Then she glanced around, leaned slightly closer, and said, "One moment." She disappeared into a back room. I waited, heart pounding. A man beside me rolled his suitcase across the floor, the wheels echoing through the marble lobby like a slow drumbeat. The receptionist returned 5 minutes later, her face neutral. "Yes," she said quietly. "Ms. Lowe was checked in for one night. Checked out the following morning." I nodded. "Thanks. That's all I needed." I turned to go, heart hammering. But she stopped me. "There's one more thing," she said, voice lower now. The reservation was listed under David Connors. She was listed as the second guest. It felt like the floor gave out beneath me. David. The name from the cafe photo. The one from the Facebook post. The one she always said with an offhand shrug, like he barely mattered. David. I don't remember walking back to my car. I just remember sitting in the driver's seat, gripping the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles turned white. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just sat there, breathing shallow, staring at the dashboard like it would tell me what to do next. The doubt was gone now. All of it. The missing lingerie. The silent nights. The hotel with his name on it. It was all real. I drove home in silence, no music, no podcasts. Just the hum of the road and the realization that my marriage was not what I thought it was. When I got home, the house looked exactly the same. That's what hit me the hardest. The familiarity of it. The couch with the indents from our bodies. The mug she left on the counter with lipstick around the rim. Her throw blanket half folded. All of it looked like normal. But it wasn't. It was a crime scene with no police. She came home that night like nothing had happened. Set her purse on the table. Kissed me on the cheek. Asked what I wanted for dinner. I just smiled, told her whatever she wanted was fine. Because now I knew. And knowing gave me control. I spent the next few days making a quiet exit plan. Opened a new checking account. Found a lawyer. Started looking at short-term rentals in another state. Somewhere quiet. Somewhere far. I didn't want revenge. I didn't want some big blow-up. I just wanted out. But before I left, I needed one more thing. Closure. So I printed the hotel receipt. No names, no argument. Just the charge and the date. I left it on the kitchen table under her favorite coffee mug. The one that said "You, me, and coffee forever" in big, loopy cursive. I left the house early the next morning before she woke up. When I checked my phone later that day, I had 6 missed calls from her and a string of texts. "What is this? Tyler? Why would you leave this? Please call me. It's not what it looks like." That phrase again. It's always not what it looks like. But this time I wasn't playing the fool. I wasn't going to stay for the argument or the tears or the excuses. The truth was right there in a bank statement and a hotel guest book. And now that I had it, I wasn't looking back. There's a kind of peace that comes after the pain. Not the good kind. Not relief or acceptance. It's more like the silence right after a bomb goes off, when the ringing in your ears hasn't stopped yet and the dust hasn't settled, but you know there's no putting things back together. That's where I was in the days after I confirmed everything. I didn't tell Megan what I knew. I didn't confront her with the receipt or demand some drawn-out confession. I didn't want the show. I didn't want the begging or the gaslighting or the we*p*nice tears. I'd seen enough. And the truth? I was too tired to fight for something that had already died. The strange part is how normal everything looked on the outside. We still ate dinner at the same table, still watched Netflix on the same couch, still exchanged casual words about work and weather and whatever show we were half watching. But I wasn't there anymore. I was a ghost in my own house, walking through a life I'd already left in my mind. I started planning my exit with the kind of quiet precision I used to admire in spy movies. I researched towns I'd never visited, combed through job boards for remote freelance gigs, and made a spreadsheet of everything I'd need to start over. The work didn't make the pain go away, but it gave me direction, something to aim at. I started moving money out of our joint account, just enough that she wouldn't notice. I packed a few essentials in an old duffel bag and stashed it in the garage behind the Christmas decorations. I canceled subscriptions in my name, created a new P.O. box, and used my lunch breaks to scout rental cabins in small towns that no one would think to look. I even practiced what I'd say if she caught me. But she never did. It's amazing how much you can get away with when someone assumes they've gotten away with more. Still, there was one thing I hadn't accounted for: her family. Megan's sister, Tara, had always been blunt. Brash. The type who said what everyone else was thinking with zero filter. And it was her words, careless and cutting, that ended up sealing my decision. It happened at her father's birthday picnic. One of those semi-awkward extended family things where everyone pretends to be closer than they are. Megan insisted we go, said it would look weird if I missed it. I didn't argue. Part of me wanted to see her in that setting one last time, surrounded by people who didn't know what she'd done. We arrived early, brought pasta salad in a ceramic bowl that had seen more potlucks than actual dinners at home. Megan played the doting wife, smiling at everyone, laughing too hard at her uncle's terrible jokes. I watched her the way you watch a stranger on a stage, studying the performance, trying to figure out what's real and what's just for show. Tara showed up an hour late, already tipsy, wearing sunglasses and a grin that meant trouble. She hugged her dad, made a loud entrance, and found her way to our corner of the yard. Megan offered her a plate. Tara took a beer instead. Then she looked at me and said it out of nowhere, no warning, just like Tara always did. So, she smirked, you sticking around even though Meg's already half out the door? The words hit like a slap I didn't see coming. Megan choked on her drink. Tara, what the hell? Tara just shrugged. What? It's not like it's a secret. Everyone's got eyes. I looked at Megan. Her face went pale, then flushed. She's drunk, she mumbled. Ignore her. But I didn't. I looked at Tara and said calmly, thanks. She blinked, caught off guard. For what? For confirming what I already knew. I handed Megan the pasta bowl, still full, and walked away. That was the last thing I ever said to her in public. That night, I didn't sleep. I lay in bed next to her, listening to the sound of her breathing, trying to remember when it had started to feel like lying next to a stranger. At 3 a.m. I got up, went to the garage, and grabbed the duffel bag. By 3:30, I was gone. I didn't leave a note. No text, no dramatic goodbye. Just silence. It felt like the only honest thing left between us. I drove until the sky turned orange behind me. I passed small towns and gas stations with flickering signs, motels with broken letters, diners that looked like time forgot them. At one point, I pulled over on the shoulder just to breathe. The air was colder than I expected. I watched the sun rise through the windshield and realized I hadn't cried once. Not yet. I didn't go to any of the places we'd ever been. No mutual friends, no shared memories. I picked a quiet town in Idaho, population less than 3,000, rented a tiny cabin with patchy Wi-Fi and an overgrown yard, and started building a life from scratch. I worked odd jobs online, editing, copywriting, the kind of work you can do in your pajamas. I used a fake last name on my lease, paid cash where I could, and stayed off social media entirely. It wasn't about hiding out of fear. It was about reclaiming space. Silence. Identity. The strangest part? No one looked for me. Not really. A few friends sent messages. I didn't respond. Megan didn't call. Not once. At least, not on the number she had. I figured she'd be angry at first. Maybe embarrassed. Maybe relieved. But in time, I knew she'd noticed the difference between being left behind and being left. I bought a used pickup truck and started fixing up the cabin, painting walls, installing shelves, chopping firewood like I'd done it my whole life. It felt primitive, almost cinematic. But it wasn't about the aesthetic. It was survival, plain and simple. For a while, I didn't feel much of anything. I was numb mostly. Not sad. Not angry. Just hollow. But I preferred the hollow to the hurt. People in town kept their distance at first. But a few warmed up eventually. The woman who ran the corner store. The guy who fixed small engines. The waitress who gave me extra hash browns without asking. None of them knew my story. And that's what made it bearable. I wasn't the guy whose wife cheated. I was just Tyler. The guy who lived in the cabin, minded his business, paid in cash, and tipped well. It wasn't a happy life. But it was a quiet one. And after everything I'd been through, quiet was a kind of salvation. I didn't know what Megan told people. Didn't care. Maybe she played the abandoned wife. Maybe she spun some story where I was the villain. Or maybe, just maybe, she told the truth. But whatever version she gave the world, it didn't matter. Because I was already gone. And for the first time in years, I felt like I belonged to myself again. Months passed. I don't know how many exactly. Out here, time moves differently. There's no calendar pinned to the fridge, no alarm to jolt you awake, no work commute to measure the weeks. Just sunrises, firewood, the occasional trip into town. I marked the seasons by the changing sounds, cicadas turning into frost, frost turning into birdsong. The world moved forward, and for the first time in years, I wasn't trying to keep up with it. I rarely checked anything connected to my old life. No social media, no news from back home, no updates from people I used to know. But one night in early spring after a long day rebuilding a sagging fence, I dug through my duffel bag and found the tablet. Not Megan's. Mine. One I hadn't touched since I disappeared. It still had an old email account logged in. A burner, basically. Something I used for newsletter signups, random subscriptions, online purchases I didn't want junking up my main inbox. I hadn't even thought about it in months. But curiosity gets weird when you're lonely. I opened it, not expecting anything. There were over 100 unread messages. Dozens were from Megan. The subject lines started angry. Seriously? Grow up. You're just going to vanish? Wow, Tyler. Then they turned desperate. Please answer. Where did you go? I'm sorry. Please talk to me. I clicked one at random. It was dated 3 weeks after I'd left. I don't know what you want me to say. You left me no room to explain. And maybe I deserve that. But I still think about you every day. I don't know how we got here. I'm so sorry for everything. I didn't respond. I just sat there on the floor of my cabin, tablet resting on my knees, rereading that email 5, 6, 7 times. My hands felt cold. Not from the air, but from how familiar her voice still sounded even through text. I opened another. A longer one. This one had paragraphs. I didn't realize how much you were holding us together until you stopped trying. I thought you were just distant, checked out. I thought you'd never leave, no matter how bad it got. I thought I could do whatever I wanted and you'd still be there. But I was wrong. You were the one who paid attention. Who made sure the bills were on time. Who remembered my mom's birthday when I forgot. Who asked me how I was even when I didn't ask back. I didn't see it at the time. And now that I do, it hurts. I know now what I cost us. I'm not writing to win you back. I want you to know that I see it. Finally, more emails followed. Week after week, sometimes 2 or 3 a day. The tone changed over time. Less pleading, more grounded. Almost like journaling she never expected me to read. Updates about her job, her therapist, the apartment she moved into after she lost the house. Did you know they repossessed my car last month? I kept pushing off the payments. I couldn't bring myself to ask my parents for help. I guess I thought you'd swoop back in and handle it like you used to. But you didn't. And that's when it really hit me. You're not coming back, are you? Still, I didn't reply. I didn't feel the need to. Reading them didn't hurt the way I expected. It was like watching someone else's movie, one I'd already seen and lived through. I felt distant from the pain, insulated by the choice I'd made. And I was grateful for that. But the final email, that one stayed with me. I thought disappearing was cruel. But now I understand. It was the only thing I couldn't argue with. The only thing I couldn't explain away or twist into something else. You leaving was the only thing that finally made me listen. I'm sorry I figured it all out too late. That last line broke something small in me. Not in a dramatic way. Just a quiet crack in the part of my heart that still remembered the first version of us. The version where I believed we were untouchable. Where I thought love could weather anything. But love can't survive in silence. And it also can't survive in noise where one person is always the one doing the listening. After that, I logged out of the email. I didn't delete it. I didn't block her. I just left it alone. Over the next few weeks, I thought a lot about how people only value something once it's gone. Megan didn't understand what I gave to the marriage. Not because she was evil or heartless, but because she'd never had to imagine life without it. Without me. And now she was living in the absence. Waking up every day in a space I used to fill. I imagined her walking past the empty side of the bed, reaching for a mug I used to use, noticing small reminders of me in corners she never used to clean. That was the punishment, if there even needed to be one. She was haunted by a man who didn't yell, didn't fight, didn't slam doors. Just left. I'd read somewhere that the cruelest kind of ending is the quiet one. Because it gives you nothing to hold on to. No closure. No last word. Just space to realize what you did and no way to fix it. That's what I'd given her. Not out of malice, but out of necessity. There's this line I couldn't stop thinking about. People learn through absence what presence meant. I used to think that was cliché. Now I saw it for what it really was, a brutal kind of truth. Megan's absence never taught me anything. I'd already known. But my absence taught her everything. I still think about her sometimes, not with longing, not with hate, just reflection. She was my wife. She mattered. But that version of us is buried now, like a ship that sank with all its treasures still on board. There's no retrieving it. And I wouldn't want to even if I could. Somewhere in another town, in another life, she's waking up to the echo of a choice she thought she could get away with. She's learning what it means to sit with regret, to feel the weight of someone else's silence. And I'm here, not happy exactly, but whole. And that's more than I ever thought I'd be. It happened at a cafe, of all places. I was sipping black coffee, reading the local paper, when I felt a presence before I saw her. Megan, smaller than I remembered, more tired. Her voice shook. Tyler. I didn't say anything, just nodded toward the empty chair. She sat. Tears welled up, but I stayed still. She apologized again. Not for the affair. She knew I already knew that, but for not listening, for not seeing me until I disappeared. I miss you, she whispered. I nodded once, then handed her the divorce papers I'd already signed. We drove in silence to the courthouse. When it was done, she looked at me, hoping. I gave her a soft goodbye. Nothing more. She cried. I walked away. A year later, I live in the quiet. Idaho mornings, freelance work, and walks through trees that don't ask questions. I think of her sometimes. How love can't survive when only one person is showing up. She saw my worth too late. But I don't regret leaving. Disappearing wasn't cowardice. It was preservation. And I finally feel free.